4 races. That is all it took. 4 races of energy management, lift and coast, superclipping, and cars that sound nothing like Formula One. And the sport's entire establishment has already agreed to change the hardware. Not for this year, for 2027. In a meeting attended by all 11 team principals, Formula One management, and all 5 power unit manufacturers, the FIA confirmed it in principle. The internal combustion engine gets 50 kilowatts more power through a fuel flow increase. The electrical element loses 50 kilowatts. The result is a shift from the current near 50-50 split to something closer to 60-40 in favor of combustion. Unanimous. Every team, every manufacturer, all agreed that rarely happens in Formula One. When it does, it means the problem was bad enough that nobody wanted to be the one defending the status quo. The 2026 engine was that problem, and 2027 is the first real step away from it. The 2026 regulations were built on a simple idea: equal contributions from the combustion engine and the electrical system. Half and half. The theory was clean. The practice was chaos. Here is why. The battery can only store 4 megajoules of energy. The car needs to deploy up to 9 megajoules per lap. The gap between those two numbers is the entire problem. The battery constantly runs out. Drivers have to harvest aggressively to keep it charged. Lifting before corners, coasting on straights, treating the fastest racing cars in the world like they are trying to conserve fuel on a motorway. The result was Behrman hitting a wall at 50G in Japan because the car ahead suddenly lost power. It was Leclerc watching his qualifying lap disappear when a line of code decided his throttle input crossed a threshold. It was Verstappen stuck behind Gasly because overtaking into a braking zone would drain the battery and guarantee being repassed on the next straight. The 50-50 split did not create exciting racing. It created energy management with a racing car attached. The decision to change it was not surprising. The surprise was that it took 4 races instead of 1. The change sounds technical. It is not complicated once you understand what it actually does. Right now, the combustion engine produces roughly 550 horsepower, and the electrical system adds another 470 horsepower on top. Total around 1,000 horsepower, but only when the battery is full. When the battery runs out, you lose nearly half the car's power instantaneously. That is the cliff. That is what causes the dangerous speed differentials. That is what kills the racing. Under the 2027 changes, the combustion engine gets an extra 50 kilowatts, roughly 67 horsepower, through a fuel flow increase. The electrical element drops from 350 kilowatts to 300 kilowatts, losing around 67 horsepower. The total power stays roughly the same, but the balance shifts. More power comes from the combustion engine, which is always available regardless of battery state. Less power comes from the electrical system, which runs out. The cliff becomes smaller. The battery dying mid-straight costs you less than it does today. Drivers can push harder without fear of suddenly becoming a slow-moving obstacle on a 300 km/h straight. Late braking returns as a real option rather than a battery management calculation. That is what 60-40 actually means. Not more power, more reliable power. The viewership numbers from 2026's opening races told a story that no amount of official optimism could hide. Fans did not just complain about the racing. They cancelled subscriptions. They stopped watching qualifying. They described the cars as boring, the sound as wrong, and the racing as artificial. And they were not wrong. A sport built on the promise of the fastest drivers in the world, pushing the fastest cars to their absolute limit, was producing something different. Drivers managing algorithms, calculating energy windows, treating high-speed corners as battery charging stations. Alonso called it that directly. The emotional connection between a Formula One car and an audience is built on sound, speed, and the visible risk of a human being at the edge of control. The 2026 engine damaged all 3. The sound was quieter and more electric. The speed was masked by energy conservation, and the risk was transferred from driver skill to software management. The 60-40 shift does not fix this completely, but it moves the needle. More combustion power means more of that distinctive internal combustion sound. Less battery dependency means more flat-out driving. More flat-out driving means more moments where a driver's skill is the variable that determines the outcome rather than their engineer's deployment map. Whether that is enough to bring back the fans who left, that depends on how the racing actually looks in 2027. But the direction is right. And the direction being right is something 2026 never managed to be. This announcement deserves honest analysis, not just celebration. The 60-40 shift is a step in the right direction. It is not a solution. The fundamental architecture of the 2026 and 2027 power unit remains the same. The battery is still there. The MGUK is still there. The energy management challenge does not disappear. It just becomes slightly less extreme. Drivers will still need to manage battery state. Super clipping does not vanish. Lift and coast does not completely disappear. The improvement is one of degree rather than kind. A 60-40 split with a 300 kilowatts MGUK is still a more electric dominant car than anything Formula One has raced before 2026.